Andy, my dude, have you heard of the magical website builder known as Squarespace?
Ugh, not another Squarespace ad. I feel like every podcast is sponsored by them.
Hey, don't knock it till you try it. Yes, okay, it is overhyped, but actually it lives up to the hype. Squarespace is like a website fairy godmother. With a click of a button, your site transforms into a beautiful masterpiece.
A website fairy godmother? That sounds interesting. What makes it so magical?
Well, for starters, those slick templates make anyone look like a professional web designer. Pick one, customize the colors and fonts to match your brand, and voila. Plus, the drag and drop fluid engine is so easy, your grandma could build a site on Squarespace.
Well, she did knit me a lovely scarf last Christmas. Maybe website design is next.
Exactly. And when you're ready to sell your Nana's handmade scarves online, Squarespace has built-in e-commerce. Add a store with one click. Get flexible payment options. Then watch those sales roll in. And when she wants to teach others her steezy scarf skills, Squarespace's new courses feature is just the ticket. Nana can set up her curriculum and enrollments and payments in a snap and become the next e-knitting influencer.
Oh, wow, you really sold me with the grandma angle. Sign me up for that free trial.
Just go to thenextreel.com/Squarespace and transform your site into a beautiful Squarespace masterpiece.
Well, thanks, Pete. Even though it's overhyped, Squarespace actually sounds perfect for Nana's site's needs. Appreciate the warning on the ads, though. I'll brace myself next time I listen to a podcast.
Anytime. Let me know if you need any help getting that site up and running. Andy, can you believe we've almost hit 700 episodes of The Next Reel?
I know, it's crazy. And with all the other episodes in our family of podcasts, we are well over 1,200 episodes of movie conversation. It's really pretty amazing that we've gotten to have these in-depth movie chats every week for over a decade now.
And we couldn't have done it without our loyal community of film fans. Their support over the years has meant so much.
For sure. That reminds me, we should give the merch store a shout out. Buying shirts from thenextreel.com/merch is a great way listeners can continue to support the show. Plus, they get to sport our great designs.
Absolutely. I think sometimes folks forget we have a variety of shirts, mugs, phone cases, and more available. In fact, a great place to start is with a shirt sporting the Next Reel's logo.
We also have that classic Fast Times Spicoli Surf School tee, or the weirdly popular Rusty's European Tour shirt.
The one from National Lampoon's European Vacation. Why is that so popular?
Search me, but we have sold a ridiculous number of those. I guess there are a lot of Rustys taking trips to Europe?
We're always adding new designs based on movies we've covered, like our brand new design for a streetcar named Desire, featuring a streetcar named Desire. So if you want to rep your love of TNR and films, head to thenextreel.com/merch.
Every purchase helps us continue to have these weekly in-depth conversations. So visit thenextreel.com/merch today.
And as always, thanks for listening and being a part of the Next Reel community. We've got lots more great movie chats coming your way. I'm Pete Wright.
And I'm Andy Nelson.
Welcome to the Next Reel. When the movie ends,
our conversation begins.
The mist is over. Give them the boy!
Whoa. Mom, Dad, you gotta come see. The birdhouse is all bashed. You just gotta... Come on. Whoa.
Having spoken, the doomsayer departs.
Come on.
Why don't you get Billy dressed? I'll take him into town with him. Hit the store before it gets all bought out.
How'd you folks hold up in the storm?
Big insurance day.
Sorry to hear that.
What's going on?
It's death.
Something in the mist! Shut the doors! Shut the doors!
The only way we're going to help ourselves is to seek rescue.
Tie this around your waist.
Or four.
Well, let us know you got at least 300 feet.
There's nothing out there. Nothing in the mist.
What if you're wrong?
Then I guess the joke would be on me.
It is time to take sides. Read the good book. It calls for blood.
Guys, I hear something. Are those bugs?
Not like any I've ever seen.
The entire front of this store is plate glass.
What are you guys messing with up there?
I thought that there were other dimensions. They wanted to try and make a window.
Well, maybe your window turned out to be a door.
Who she's gonna sacrifice to make it all better?
We want the boy.
You try it.
Kill him!
Andy, have you heard about these membership plans we have over at the Next Reel?
Membership plans? Tell me more.
For just $1 a month, that's practically nothing, you can become a one-reeler member and get access to member channels over on Discord.
But I'm already a member on Discord.
Yeah, but you don't have access to the special channels.
Ooh, so what's on these special member-only channels?
You know that Saturday matinee show?
Oh yeah, the one I get every Monday when the hosts talk about news and trailers, play movie-related games, and then they challenge each other with their lists of films related somehow to the movie that we reviewed that week?
That's the one. Members get access to the Show Talk channel where they can vote on these lists each week.
Wait. You mean there's a vote? I love voting. Mama always said, vote early and vote often.
Now, if you bump your membership to the two-reeler tier, which costs a measly $5 a month, practically the same you'd pay for a fancy coffee drink, you get so much more.
Oh, what more is there?
Two-reelers not only get everything the one-reelers get,
that's a given,
but they also get access to live streams to watch the shows when they actually record, or anytime thereafter.
You mean I have to stop doing this in my bathrobe?
Two-reelers also get to be a part of the pre-show chat with hosts before every Film Board episode.
I like it.
Two-reelers get every show before regular listeners and without ads.
Oh, you mean they don't have to sit through this? Count me in.
But the best benefit of all, members get bonus member-only episodes.
I love that.
It's an exciting time to be alive. What can I say?
So how do I sign up?
It's easy. Just head to thenextreel.com/membership.
Thenextreel.com/membership?
Thenextreel.com/membership. Access to member-only channels in Discord, early access to shows, access to live streams, and member bonus episodes. Sign up today. All right, Andy. We're talking about number 3, the last in our King Darabont series, the books or novellas of Stephen King as adapted for movies by Frank Darabont. We are talking about 2007's The Mist. The Mist. Spooky, spooky Mist.
Were you disappointed that there were no gorillas?
Joke is way too funny. One, I hadn't thought of it, and so I wasn't disappointed, and now it's all I can think about. Tentacled gorillas. I'm sure that's what's on it. When he asks, what's on the other side and what's connected to those tentacles, now it's a gorilla.
That's a gorilla, right? I love that. I want to see that creature on a shirt, a gorilla with big tentacles.
So the novella was originally published in Skeleton Crew. It was not. I had not read it, and I had not seen this movie. And so when there was a mist and there was a mystery in it, I didn't know what it was, and that was really fun.
That is fun.
What do you think?
It was actually originally in the Dark Forces anthology before Skeleton Crew. That was a few years earlier, and I had read it, but it's been a very long time since I read Skeleton Crew, so I can't speak to my memories of the story. I just remember enjoying, in general, Stephen King's shorts, and so I'm sure I enjoyed it at the time. And revisiting it now, coming all the way back to the film, which I saw in theaters, I was excited. It looked really intriguing, and I was blown away by how well they did, like an actual horror film. Like everything felt horrific. Like what was going on in the mist was horrifying. The way that people behaved became horrifying, and it builds to an ending that it's a pretty dark ending. And I just loved that they went to such a dark place in this particular film. I really enjoy it. And once the Blu-ray came out and DVD with Frank Darabont's black and white director intended version of it, I immediately snatched that up. And now, like, that's the version I watch. I just feel like I agree with him. He has a little intro at the start of it talking about how he really wanted to have this black and white version, because black and white is not, you'll never see black and white in the real world as a thing. The only place you can get that is in the movies. And it's kind of this, it creates this otherworldly sense of a storytelling. And so I really enjoy that, especially with this creature feature that he created here that feels like it's kind of throwbacks to the 50s and 60s with these horror monsters that feel very Lovecraftian. It just, like, everything about it just, I don't know, it just works on a really creepy level for me that we hadn't seen yet from Frank Darabont as a director. Certainly in TV, I guess he's gone there now with like The Walking Dead and stuff, and as a writer earlier in his career with The Nightmare on Elm Street 3 and things like that. But here, it's like this is something we hadn't seen him do with Stephen King yet, and it thrilled me.
I'm right there with you, and especially on the black and white. I watched the color, and because I hadn't seen it, and at that point I didn't know any better. And after watching it, hearing that there is a black and white version of it, I immediately found the black and white and watched it again, and it is a viscerally better experience. I mean, it's just fantastic. And it makes you think back to, like you talk about the 50s and 60s, what an unintended benefit of like technological limitations at the time. Like, had we been able to jump straight to color, we probably would have, and just missed what is capable on these great black and white films. And I just love watching it adapted for modern filmmaking. I think it looks great. It feels great. One of the things that you had told me when I mentioned I had found it was that it improves many of the effect sequences, not the least of which is that loading dock scene with the tentacles. Man, does it ever. It really, really does. I felt like in some cuts that I was like on the Universal backlot tour of, and Jaws was coming up out of the water, robot Jaws with some of those tentacle scenes, and the black and white, not at all. You're able to really get lost in some of the horror of the movie. I thought it was exceptional. But at its very best is anytime you're dealing with the mist, right? When you're looking through the glass and you see that it's just a white, blanket of white on the other side, and faces come out of the mist. When you see Norm getting dragged into the mist, like those contrasts of loss and grief with the black and high white is, I mean, it's just amazing. It's just amazing. Emotionally gripping. I loved it.
When they are journeying from the grocery store next door to the pharmacy, which isn't that far, and they have to kind of cut across the parking lot to get over there, the way that they dip in and out of that mist, and you just see it's like these soft fades of the people, as they kind of walk into this and they get lost in this kind of this fog. It's just like it creates such fear because it's this thick white air that's all around you, and as you're walking through it, you disappear real quick. And as we see toward the end, when the group of people who finally get out of the grocery store, who are wanting to hop in their car and drive away, as we see them trying to get to their car, like the groups, like people get lost because they're not seeing each other. And how terrifying is that, as you're trying to all stick together to get to this car so you can all make it out of there, and you're separated and you're trying to find where the horn is and stuff, but you're also running from creatures. It's a really terrifying way to kind of create a horror story.
One of the things apparently, and I've watched this twice in like 36 hours, and I don't remember any direct reference to this in particular, but as I was reading up on it and having not read the book, there is apparently some of the characters make mention of the Great Blizzard of 1888. Thanks, Wikipedia. Do you know anything about the Great Blizzard of 1888?
I'm pretty sure those references are from the book.
Yeah, me too. That's what I mean. Yeah. And so I started reading about, of course, as you do, the Great Blizzard of 1888. From March 11th to 14th, 1888, one of the most severe recorded blizzards in American history, paralyzing the East Coast from Chesapeake Bay to Maine and into the Atlantic provinces of Canada. Snow fell from 10 to 58 inches in parts of New Jersey, which is stunning. But here's the thing. The weather was unseasonably mild just before the blizzard. Heavy rains turned to snow as temperatures dropped rapidly. The storm began in earnest shortly after midnight and continued unabated for a full day and a half. In a 2007 article, the National Weather Service estimated that this nor'easter dumped as much as 50 inches of snow in parts of Connecticut and Massachusetts, while parts of New Jersey and New York had up to 40 inches, and Vermont 20 to 30, with drifts averaging 30 to 40 feet.
Oh my gosh.
Highest drift recorded in Gravesend, Brooklyn at 52 feet or 16 meters. That is awesome. That is awesome. And I remember going to Chautauqua, they back when we traveled, and they have many main entrance doors to homes are on the second floor with very large awnings. And so that was because of these kinds of things in Western New York, these kinds of storms that would bring such high drifts, you would actually enter and exit your home on the second story.
That's just nuts.
So that is mentioned in the book. And I bring all that up because I can't help but think about it, like that, the suddenness of the storm and the way the movie opens, where our protagonist is painting, I guess it's the gunslinger, right? I mean, he's painting the movie poster, and he is, and the storm happens, like it just happens with urgency and immediacy, and they all have to head downstairs. And that gave me that, they totally captured that sense of, this is an emergency storm. You have to, take shelter now. It's just a great feeling, a great way into the movie that captures that mystery. And it's just wonderful.
Well, and what a nice setup too, right? We have this huge storm. I mean, obviously it's a devastating storm for the community. A tree there, the tree that his grandfather had planted falls and goes right through his wall and destroys his art room where he is working on that movie poster. And his neighbor's tree falls on his boathouse. His neighbor's tree, another tree also crushes his car. It's a devastating storm, and you can see that. And I love the setup for that, because we see how devastating this storm is to the people. They're all going into town to try getting supplies because there's no power in the town. And then we find out there's also this military base up on the mountain across the lake where they're working on the Arrowhead project. And as things unfold, we find out they've lost power too. And guess what? They happened to be exploring portals into other dimensions. Probably not a good time to lose power, because of course now we have all these creatures wandering through the mist. And I just love the way that we start getting that information over the course of this film, and kind of these little bits and pieces are given to us, and we start realizing what's happening. I mean, it's a great setup for a story. And I think Stephen King found a great way to tell the story. But I think one of the biggest strengths is the characters. And that's what I love so much about Stephen King's characters, is he finds ways to create such despicable characters that you have, that you really don't like, and that really kind of find ways to come to power over the course of their stories. And I really enjoy that. And we certainly see that. I mean, we already have that right out of the gate with the relationship between our protagonist here, David Drayton, played by Thomas Jane, with his neighbor, Andre Braugher, who's playing Brent. They already have a very antagonistic relationship that is nice to see. But once we get to the grocery store and we meet Mrs. Carmody, the crazy religious fanatic, that's when things really pick up, because she seems like a nut at the beginning, but as we see things grow and change, I mean, it totally turns into Lord of the Flies. I think that's such an incredible way to explore this situation.
Yeah, Stephen King, I think, works in some really sometimes strikingly obvious character tropes. There's always the blue collar worker who doesn't trust the liberal elite, right, educated person, and we have that in Sadler's character. And we have the religious fanatic. We have the we do have the bright young teacher with a gun in her purse. There's there are a lot of these like tropes that are at work, but Stephen King in Maine, it feels okay to me. Like there's nothing in here that I think normally would be exhausting to watch. I would just feel like it's just a retread of just more, of the kinds of tropes that we see and it used clumsily in other movies. I think King's characters actually work. In his hands, they actually work for me. And I don't have any issues with some of the more strident stereotypes, the religious fanatic, the fact that she becomes the authoritarian despot, and it has to be put down because she has gone so far is, I think, a brilliant use of that trope. And the fact that David Drayton is not an unlikable guy. Like, I feel like that's one of the most central sort of conflicts that I am watching here is why the hell does nobody like him, right? Like, there's no reason that Brent, the rich black attorney from New York City, should not like Drayton, right? We don't really know the details of apparently Brent had sued Drayton the year prior. We don't know a lot of those details, but it just feels absurd that they don't get along as neighbors. And so I think that mystery and why people don't like David is a really interesting one for me. And it makes all of the the opposite corners kind of character fights more fun to watch.
Well, what's interesting is I think with Brent's character that he is like right out of the gate, we get a sense that he's an angry, bitter person,
yes.
Right? Like as David rounds the corner to go talk to him about the tree, Brent is trying to get his chainsaw started, and he's just cussing up a storm.
Which he can't turn on.
Right. He's such an angry person. And so we see that, and that's established. And he doesn't trust people. And part of that just comes from his lawyer attitude. And I think that we really see that when David and Toby Jones's character, Ollie, along with, the mechanics are trying to say, a tentacle just came under the door in the loading dock and took Norm. He's, Brent, his reaction, I think, I mean, it really irks me that they take so long to say, come to the back and look at this tentacle on the floor. Like, why don't they just do that right away? But I love that regardless, that aside, I love the way Brent's reaction is like, you guys, I'm not an idiot. You're just, I know you all are trying to, this whole playing this joke on the guy from out of town. Like, I think that's a really interesting angle to take. And even we get some of that with David and William Sadler's character as they're talking. He's just like, you're a big highfalutin guy. And because David is a local, but he is a movie poster designer working with Hollywood, New York, and all this stuff. And so these local mechanics still look at him like, he's looking down on them. And so they're judging him. And so, I love these character dynamics that we're getting.
And to Andre Braugher's portrayal here, which I think is just perfect, right? You bring up exactly the scene I was talking about in the grocery store where he's like, you can't play a joke on me. But because like for me, the way he is written is a guy who has overcome everything. He's overcome probably wealth disparities and education disparities, and he's fought tooth and nail to get everything that he has. He is now a wealthy black man who is used to that sort of inner culture of mistrust. And so he has no reason to believe that anybody is out for his best interests, right? He has no reason to believe that they're out looking to be friends with him. And he feels like he's betrayed because that first exchange that we get in the opening 5 minutes of the movie, he actually started to let himself feel a bit of an affinity toward his neighbor. And so that he holds on so tightly to this idea that he can't trust all the white hicks, as he calls them, to, be straight with him about what is really going on. It just can't even enter his belief system, whether or not he would have gone to the loading dock or not. But this is another thing I really celebrate with the whole story and the way it's played out in the movie. It would have been so easy not to have people go to the loading dock, right? That could have been, and I absolutely expected that to be the primary source of conflict in the story, that David had seen something and was unable to prove it to anybody in the town because he couldn't, nobody would go back to the loading dock, or he couldn't get people back to the loading dock, or God forbid the tentacle that he cut had turned to liquid goo before anybody had seen it. Like, that was the other thing. Oh, everybody come back to the loading dock, and then the tentacle's not there. Like, at every turn, I was pleasantly surprised because they let it happen in a way that felt much more natural to me. Like, yes, we're going to have people come to the loading dock and see the evidence of what is really going on here. And I was over the moon at those choices because it felt much more human.
Yeah, and you bring that up. I do appreciate that we do get to bring Bud, who's the manager of the grocery store. Like, he comes back and he sees it. I'm like, oh, good. Somebody's here in time to see that there is a real thing here. It's not just a rubber snake. And then it dissolves and disappears. And I was like, okay, good. I'm glad we got to see that. Like, because he seems like at this point, for the people who are in the grocery store, since he's the manager, I suppose he seems like a little bit more of an authoritarian. Like, people can trust him, right?
I think even authority is what authoritarian.
Yeah,
maybe not, but authority.
Not quite right. Yeah, authority, right? Yeah. But of course, Brent still doesn't trust him. Brent still wants to get some people, and they all leave, and that's kind of that's the way that this plays. Is this idea of trust and this idea of belief systems and power structures and everything. And I find it really interesting the way that we start exploring that as they start trying to build some semblance of a system of creating a society here inside this store, getting stuff cleaned up after the big earthquake and making sure people who are hurt are taken care of and all of that, while Mrs. Carmody starts kind of, spouting her stuff, while Brent is raising his own group so that they can go out into the mist. And while they're just trying to figure out what the heck is going on. And this is all before we really start getting more of the monsters, right? Which isn't until that night when all of a sudden those giant mosquito creatures appear. And so that's like a full 12 hours that, like, we're in this antitrust zone.
Yeah, right. And I think we need to be there, obviously, to make the fight of against the monsters, that much more compelling. But just as an aside, did I miss what happened to Brent? Like, they left. The big tall guy with the longhorn mustache put the rope around his waist and got just roped in half. That was horrifying. But did we ever see Brent again? He's just gone, right? My brain, like, I had a Mandela effect that he was also on the truck at the end with Melissa McBride's character, but he's not. We never see him again. And actually, they make the assumption, which is probably an accurate assumption, that Brent and his group got taken also by whatever creature took the guy who ran out. The top half.
Because I think they say at some point, they're like, whatever happened to Brent, because they didn't make it more than, or they might have made it about 300 feet out of the parking lot, but that's about as far as they probably got.
But what lovely agony that we did see Melissa McBride on the truck at the end. In terms of people who leave the store, that was a shiv to the gut.
It's tough, and it's one of those moments where in the book that was actually a change for the movie, that we actually get to see her, and really I love the story about Melissa McBride here, because she was a local actor from either Texas or Louisiana who came to be an extra here, and Frank Darabont was kind of bringing some of the extras who could act a little better into some of these small parts, the bit parts, and he was really impressed with her, and just like I really like her look. I like the emotion that she carries as an actress here. She's just this local actress, but she's fantastic. And that's what got her the job on The Walking Dead. Yeah. How awesome is that? Like, I love that journey that she ends up taking here.
And she's so incredibly good in The Walking Dead.
Oh, she's just fantastic.
A great run.
Yeah. But her moment at the end was only there because he really found her to be such an impressive actress. And so he changed that in the script to show that she was actually alive. And part of me is like, that just feels so mean to have her survive all of this after seeing everything that David has to go through, and it's like, I guess it's good. I'm thrilled that she survives. At the same time, I can't help but find it hurts a little bit too.
Did you struggle at all ever? And it's going to be hard for you to, I'm sure, to put yourself back there. But did you struggle at all with what the mist was hiding when you first read the story, watched the movie? Was it okay that it was monsters?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's a Stephen King story. I guess it didn't bother me too much that it was something like this, as opposed to, like, you mean a different creature or just
something maybe a little bit more emotionally complex,
like the ghosts of pirates, like in The
yes,
Fog.
Ghosts of Pirates. I was hoping for Ghosts of Pirates. No, but as your armchair rewriting the movie, I should say, qualified. I really enjoyed the movie, and I enjoyed the entire experience. And now that I've watched it twice, I enjoy it more the more I watch it. Like, I'm used to it now. I'm adjusted to it. But my first watch, I thought, I wonder if it's too easy that it's monsters in the mist. I expected it to be some sort of something that played with the nature of humanity. When you go into the mist, when the mist goes into you, you become something different, right? Mm-hmm. And so I was attuned already to making it more of a psychological horror, and I didn't get that. I got a very literal monster movie out of this thing. What they did with the monsters, credit to, Darabont, obviously off of King's material, but, Greg Nicotero and the creature design team, I think did a phenomenal job with these creatures. They are great and varied and crazy. And how does a universe exist where these things haven't just annihilated one another? It's just a bananas kind of world building that they've done. But I had a great time with them. I just wondered if it was the easy out.
That's interesting. I guess I always knew it was going to be monsters because I saw the trailer before I saw the film, and obviously I had read the book, so it didn't come as a big surprise.
Yeah.
I guess I've never really raised that question in my own head. I've always been okay with it, I guess, especially because, as we find out with the whole thing with the Arrowhead Project and the portal from another dimension, it all just ended up seeming okay. And it never questioned me because, I mean, you're kind of taking it into more of a annihilation type of zone where something, you go into this space and there's clearly things that are changing and happening in your own heads. And, I think that that's something that's very interesting in that particular story.
Well, and maybe that's what has it been infused into me, which was another incredible experience, right?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. I can see that. I don't know. I guess for my part, I don't think I end up having a problem with it. And maybe it's because in some way, there are monsters in the mist, but it's also the monsters that the people become because they're trapped in the mist. And so maybe on that end, I'm okay with it because I feel like we are seeing the people turn into monsters in some capacity.
Right. And we can't forget, from the perspective of the monsters, we are the monsters in the mist, right? All we do is hide in this thing and the humans just keep killing our kind. It's just horrifying. If you're one of these monsters, you don't want to go into that store. You have to because you have to eat. You're terrified. You don't know what a store is. You're from Lovecraftia. This portal, this other dimension, suddenly you wake up and you're in this place and all you can do is like sting and eat.
Oh, I am legend of you.
Yeah, that's the sequel.
Monsters.
This is the Flags of Our Fathers Iwo Jima pair. I want to see the second movie.
The acid spiders. We're just trying to get some food.
Up. Yeah.
These things keep coming along and stabbing us in the face.
Yeah. And it's going to be voiced by Chris Pratt, and it's going to be essentially the Lego movie.
I don't know why Legos never jumped on the bandwagon and started making toys or Happy Meals with the little these little creatures.
The next real product spinoff for 2021 is character dolls from the mist for
Funko Pops.
Food. Funko food.
Yeah.
Let's talk before we talk about the end. Can we talk about the spiders? More of the spiders.
Okay. Yes. Let's talk more of the spiders.
It's a major sequence. Going to the pharmacy. It's a major sequence, and this is the one place where I struggled visually, like, to keep up with where our characters were in time and space. And I think the darkness of it, the way that once they discover the webs, it becomes just chaos. And I found it difficult to track where I was as an audience member in this building because we never see the building in the light, right? We never get a sense of of where they're going, what they're doing, and so I struggled with it. That said, the spiders make up for it because the spiders are terrible and they're amazing to watch in action. And I think they have creepy. One of the grossest mouths. I think it's like they started with a human mouth and put more fangs on it, because at one point he flips a spider over the camera and you see it with its open mouth, and I think it actually has an uvula in there. It's terrible.
Yeah, they're pretty creepy. And it's like, what, the fourth creature we see or something like that? Yes. So we've seen the tentacle creature, we've seen the giant mosquito things, we've seen the weird pterodactyl birds.
Yeah, the pterodactyl bird.
And then it's the spiders. And they keep upping in kind of this horrific look. And of course, spiders are very creepy. Actually, it's interesting that you say that, because I think until we found out, and this is going back to your earlier point, until we really found out what was happening with the Arrowhead Project and all of that, part of me was thinking that I wonder if the military has been doing experiments on insects
actual
or something.
Spiders.
Because it seems like, other than the tentacles, but everything else seems like kind of insectoid in some way, right? And so I was thinking, I wonder if they've been doing experiments there. So just kind of going back to your last point. But yes, the spiders have such a creepy design. I don't know if it bothered me so much my sense of space in the pharmacy. Obviously it's kind of a long store. They have to go through the store to get to the back where the pharmacy is. They kind of climb through the little window to get in there to get the drugs and everything, and then make their way back out. I don't think it bothered me too much, but I do think they created a truly terrifying creature in those spiders, especially they're shooting those like acid web strings that they use to kind of catch their prey. It's kind of terrifying, especially when they shoot the guy in the face and his his whole body starts dissolving, and then he's covered.
His leg.
He's swarmed by those little babies.
Yeah, and the one jumps on and goes for his neck. That's rough. Yeah. The one of the great effects in here is when his leg is like lassoed by the web, and it just like unsheathes his pants and skin.
Yeah, it's pretty gruesome.
It's really gruesome. There are some really... Oh, and of course, we have, again, talk about a spider horror trope. We have egg sacs erupting on a human character. Yeah. That is rough. There are a lot of spiders, and it is delivered, I think, perfectly. The way you have the first one coming out of the cheek or the neck, and then he falls, and his body essentially explodes. It has been completely husked, right? It is a human husk that is filled with just baby spiders. Oh, babies. So cute.
So many babies.
It was a terrifically believable effect. Like it was just great. The combination of practical and digital was just wonderful.
Yeah, it's incredibly effective. That works well. And going back to like the effects work and everything and talking about these things, I also just have to point out the fact that we do lose one of our store clerks in a truly horrifying way. Also, this is Alexa Davalos, who's playing Sally. She is attacked by one of these mosquito creatures that stings her in her neck, and then it swells slowly over the course of a couple of minutes until she dies. Horrifying. And just going to you're talking about the effects work with all of the baby spiders bursting out of the guy's skin. I also think there's something really horrifying about getting a sting, whether it's a bee or a scorpion or a mosquito or whatever it is, and having it just continue swelling to a point that you die from it. It's gruesome when you see her, when she's dead. It's awful.
Oh, where's that EpiPen, man? Where's that Lovecraftian EpiPen? Okay, the big change in this movie from the book adaptation is at the end of the book. My understanding is that everybody they're trying to make their way to the car. Everybody's killed by monsters except for David and his son, and they are able to get in the car and they drive off into the mist set looking for hope in another town. Is that basically how you remember it? Am I catching that?
Ollie and Amanda are killed.
Yes.
Ollie and Amanda are killed outside by the creatures. And so David and Billy hit the road and tried to get, actually, I can't remember now. Amanda might have been with them. But anyway, it's a very small group. And it's essentially the same. Like they try to get David's house. Everything's blocked. They can't get there. And then they turn on the radio. And this was a complaint about the movie. It's like, why didn't they just turn on the radio to see if there are any messages out there, like from the military saying, hey, we're coming for you or anything. But they hear Hartford, Connecticut, and then they hit the road driving, hoping that they will eventually find a way to get out of the mist. That's how the book ends. It's a bleak ending that just kind of leaves them with a question of, is there going to be an end to this or not?
That was it. On the radio, through the interference, David hears of Hartford, and he drives on in a hope of escape from the mist. Hartford, Connecticut, I assume.
I assume so, yeah.
In the book, or in the movie, Andy, my God, he has the gun from Amanda's purse, and he has 4 bullets.
Yes.
In the car are Ollie, Amanda, himself.
No, not Ollie.
Not Ollie. Ollie's out there. Who's
Ollie died.
Ollie died.
It's Dan.
Dan
and
right.
Irene, Amanda, David, and his son Billy.
So 5 people, 4 bullets, and they drive until they run out of gas, and they are in the mist, and they come to a suicide pact, and he is the one to carry it out. This is David I'm talking about here.
Yeah.
And so he has the gun. And he's looking at Amanda and his son, and we're in the car, and you know what's happening. And then we cut to external shot of the car in the mist, flash of light, of muzzle flash in the car 4 times, boom, 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 cut back into the car. He is distraught. He gets out of the car, and in an incredibly powerful portrayal of grief and rage, he screams, "Come and get me, come and get me, come and get me." And the mist clears, the military's here, it's all over, everything's fine, don't worry, Go back to your homes, everything's fine.
Yeah.
He just killed them all, Andy. He killed them all. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it for 2 primary reasons. First, I couldn't believe how much I loved it. I loved this choice. And 2, I couldn't believe this wasn't the King original ending. This felt like a Stephen King ending to me. More Stephen King than the original ending in the book. I could not believe it.
It's a very dark ending. And honestly, it ties, I personally, I think it ties in incredibly well with kind of this biblical setup that he had created in the story with Mrs. Carmody and kind of this biblical wrath of God darkness that she had. Because what we end up getting is this story of Job, right? It's this character who's put upon by God to prove his faith, basically. And in the end, he sacrifices people, and, God essentially kind of says, okay, it's an interesting way to kind of look at the story. And the question that I think is really interesting is, if there wasn't a sacrifice, would the mist have cleared?
Oh, that's a noodle baker, isn't it? Wow.
And that's something that I think is really interesting. Like, is it only clearing because of the sacrifice, or would it have cleared anyway?
Well, Andy, that's the book, right? The mist, as far as we know at the end of the mist, there is no sacrifice. He's in the car with his son. They get away, but the mist is still there. Ugh. Wow.
It's so dark, but I also love the way that it leaves you, because it puts this character in this horrific place where he has to make this decision, and he goes through with it, and he is essentially saved in the worst of possible ways. I mean, it's a horrifying way to end the story, but it's the most horrific ending, and I think that it stays dark, and it doesn't allow for a happy ending. And for me, this is the way to end it. And this is what I think a lot of horror films don't do, is they don't take it to that place where it gives you an ending that allows for the horror to just be there. Right. And I think we're seeing, you see it once in a while, and we certainly see it in films recently, like Hereditary and Midsommar, and what was the other one I was just thinking of? The Witch. There are films that have these dark endings where it's left in this place of darkness. And I don't know. It excites me when filmmakers aren't afraid to take the darker way through the end of the story.
Absolutely. Now, I am gratified that King was amenable to this change. As far as I know, he liked it.
Yeah, I believe he did, which is great. Yeah,
it's really great. It's great, and I think in terms of our series, the King Darabont series, I think that choice in and of itself highlights why this is such a perfect pairing. Because Frank Darabont is a guy who gets it, and he has demonstrated just the level to which he gets it through the last two movies. And this movie, I think, in terms of his ability to adapt, the breadth of what Stephen King has to offer, I think this is a real pinnacle.
Well, and I think it's telling that, especially knowing Frank Darabont's early filmmaking work where it was more horror focused, this was actually the first story that he wanted to do as his directorial debut. He ended up changing things around, and obviously it wasn't. And I think we're all grateful the fact that Shawshank ended up coming first. But I think that it speaks to his horror roots and where he really came from as a filmmaker. And obviously what he still is really passionate about, you see in like The Walking Dead and stuff. And I love that he thrives in this. And from all the thoughts and reviews I've read about the film, it's like people really saw that this is a person who gets it, who understands what Stephen King is doing with his horror, and found a way to adapt it in a way that made it work really well, and probably better than the original story did. And it's dark and it's horrifying, but it works.
Anybody, as we run through the cast?
I think, speaking of cast, I think we absolutely just need to just bring up the fact again that Frank Darabont is one of those directors who really starts like building his team. And you can really see that going all the way back to The Woman in the Room. And we haven't talked about Brian Libby at all. He plays the biker who runs out and gets eaten. The top half gets eaten. But Brian Libby has been in every project so far. He was in The Woman in the Room, the very first Dollar Baby short that he made. He was the son in that particular film. In Shawshank Redemption, he pops up as one of the other prisoners that they are hanging out with. In The Green Mile, he's the sheriff. And in The Majestic, he's a studio guard. And now he's the biker in The Mist. And I don't believe, did he go on to do, I don't think he ended up following him over to do anything else. I'm not sure what's happened with Brian Libby since. He seems to have kind of dropped off the radar. So this was his last film. So hopefully he's still around. I don't know. But anyway, like right from the gate, like he's using people that you will consistently see. William Sadler we've seen him a number of times over the course of this series. Jeffrey DeMunn, we've seen also in every one of these films so far, and goes on to The Walking Dead. Same thing. This is the first time he works with Melissa McBride and brings her onto The Walking Dead. Laurie Holden, he worked with her right before this on The Majestic, and then here, and then The Walking Dead. Like he's consistently like latching on to these performers and saying, "You're great. Let's keep working together." And I love that we keep seeing that.
Thomas Jane, for me, as the protagonist, is our protagonist, David Drayton, is fantastic. And I had found him in The Expanse, not knowing that I had seen him before that. Really love him in The Expanse. And he wasn't in, or hasn't been in the entire run. He's now, he's transformed. He's not really, it's a big thing, and it's hard to explain what he is anymore in the series. But he was a real treat in the first season, and so it was a thrill to see him in this movie, and then to see that he was also one of the veggie police, the vegan police in Scott Pilgrim versus the World. It was just an enormous treat. I had to immediately go back and watch that. It's true. He is that guy. It happens fast, but he's there. And he has lines. So that was really fun to see him. He was a real high point in this movie. He's a super grounded performance, and all the other craziness that goes on around him, he's a nice anchor. I think he's a great, strong performer, especially as a foil for both Andre Braugher, who is an exceptional talent in his own right, and Marcia Gay Harden, the same, playing the opposite ends of the political sort of social spectrum. I think they make a terrific trio.
We talked about him way back in Boogie Nights because he played Todd, the guy who Mark Wahlberg kind of connects with late in the game, and I thought he was great there. He has appeared in a number of other Stephen King properties, like Dreamcatcher. He was in that, and then I think I want to say he did one other one, but I'm blanking on what that would be at this point. Oh, it was 1922. It was the Netflix movie that was pretty good. And of course, The Punisher. He was unfortunately in the version of The Punisher with John Travolta, which, it has its moments, but on the whole, it's not that great.
Okay.
But he's one of those guys who I feel like I've seen him off and on throughout his career as kind of one of those guys. But really, I think that he really is given a chance to kind of come into his own here. And I don't know. I love what he's doing with this character. I have a great time. A lot of people, you look around at the reviews and a lot of kind of people's thoughts on this film, his end performance here, a lot of people have issues with how big and over the top it is. And a lot of people say it really pulls them out of the film because his acting is almost seems a little too over the top and goofy. I don't feel that. I watched this ending and I'm like, this is a guy who just killed his own son and these other people that he was with and is just horrified and devastated. Yeah. And I don't know. I don't have any issues with that, but I know that there are issues that some people have with that.
100%. I'm with you. And it's become the subject of memes. You sent me one, and I laughed until I realized, hey, he shot his son. Stop it. Stop it, internet.
Oh, it's terrible. It's a terrible meme.
A couple of other highlights. One, Frances Sternhagen is always a delight as the rancorous elderly teacher.
I want her to just walk around with me at all times, to throw a can of peas at people who just irritate me. She was great. Yeah, she was great. I can't remember how much we talked about Marcia Gay Harden specifically, but she's one of those actresses who I always feel like I don't give enough credit to. And I know she won an Oscar and like she's obviously done some great performances. But she's one of those people who kind of disappears into her roles so often that I feel like I kind of forget that she's out there. And when I see her in something like this, I'm like, oh yeah, of course, she's such a great actress. Why don't I see her more? And it's just, I see her all the time. It's just, she is totally in all sense of the word, an actual actress, not a movie star, where she really just disappears into the film.
Yeah, I think so too. She is a character actor, one of the greats. And man, did I not like her in this movie. Hats off to her for nailing it.
She is atrocious.
Yeah.
By the time you get to that end where she's like, sacrifice the boy or whatever she says, it's just like, holy cow, she has gone down the crazy train.
Truly.
It is tough.
The other fun addition to this thing, one of the soldiers, is Sam Witwer. Do you know much of Sam Witwer?
I know he is, what is the thing that I know him from? I don't know what I know him from, but he was in something.
Yes, he is in a lot of things. So I found him originally in Smallville. He played, I can't remember. He was one of the human characters that came from Krypton. I think he became like Darkseid at the end. They were doing this whole Darkseid thing, and he had things erupting out of his face. He was great. And then he went on. He's been in The Walking Dead. He's done a lot of voice stuff in and around Star Wars. He did the Force Unleashed 2, and then he was all over. He was in Being Human, which was terrific. A terrific series, ran for a couple of years. Mr. Hyde in Once Upon a Time. He was on that for a bunch. And then he was Maul, the voice of Maul in Solo, a Star Wars story.
Well, and Clone Wars, Rebels. I mean, he is Maul now.
He is Maul now. And he's Agent Liberty and Ben Lockwood and Brainiac 5 in Supergirl. So if you're watching the Arrowverse shows, you'll see him a little bit. And of course, he is in Clone Wars and the other Star Wars stuff. He's great.
I realized it was Battlestar Galactica. That's where I first really remembered him from. That was my first connection with him.
Yes, absolutely. And I mean, He was great, and that he was in, I think, pretty much a season, right? He was in was it the first season, I think?
I can't remember which season, but yeah, he was in over the course of a season, he was in quite a number of them. I want one more actor I forgot to point out, Juan Gabriel Pareja. Mm-hmm. He is one of the other military guys, and he is also one of the people that would latch on and become a regular with Darabont, and he'd pop up in The Walking Dead also as Morales.
Great cast. Camera is Ron Schmidt, is on his DP.
What I think was interesting about this is Darabont really wanted to kind of get a grittier look with the way that the film looked, kind of this almost documentary-ish feel, a little more fluid and kind of like these cameras following people around. And so he actually got in touch with the team over at The Shield, which, is one of my favorite TV shows, and ended up talking to Ron Schmidt, who had worked on that show for, I think the entire run of it.
79 episodes.
Yeah. So he Darabont wanted that feel, that raw feel to the film. And so that's why he brought Ron over, because he had actually met him when he directed one of the episodes over there and wanted that style. And so I think that's interesting, the way that kind of he brought that over and found the look here, which, it's funny that he says that, because I don't know how much I see the Shield documentary approach here, but I don't know. I guess I would say I feel like it is a little more intense than what we were getting in Shawshank or Green Mile or even The Majestic.
I think so. He is also DP on a trio. One of my favorite Stargate spinoffs was Stargate Universe, that sadly canceled after far too soon. He did the 3-part episode Air, which was amazing television. Amazing television. So from The Mist to The Shield, lead to the 25 episodes he did for The Walking Dead. Like, you really feel you can start to feel his stamp on just the way he uses camera in character. And I think it's really great work. It was fun to see sort of where he came from.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I didn't find anything. That's one thing I was looking for. I was curious if there were some conversations that Ron had with Frank when they were starting this about the black and white version and the way that, because, we talked about this on the film board when we talked about Mank and how David Fincher shot it in black and white, really wanted to make everything look perfect in black and white. Obviously, there's a difference in these films that are shot in color and then they go through the DI process and turn it black and white. Like, what was the process that they went through in those conversations to allow for that? I didn't find anything, but I would love to kind of get a little backstory on that.
Yeah, truly. We've talked about the effects. Greg Nicotero is just one more name drop for him, because he went on to play such a central role in The Walking Dead. And I could not get over some of the sort of direct visual lineage from The Walking Dead to this movie. I mean, it's just, it was really fun to see. It was like old home week to see some of that effects work that I think really defined a generation of horror in the work of this particular team. It was really fun.
Yeah. And he was also on as the second unit director, which makes sense because filming all those scenes where you need the specific shots designed around these things. And, he had designed the puppets and everything so the actors could see what they were going to be acting against, because this was one of those things where all these actors are just acting against the little effect balls, that they have on sticks that they're moving around. And that's hard. That's really hard to get yourself into that place where you're imagining that. So at least he's creating the physical puppets for them to look at or to get a sense of. So I like that. And I think he does great work. So
Mark Isham behind the music.
Mark Isham absolutely is a great composer, but I think also we have to bring up the fact that we have Dead Can Dance here with their song "The Host of Seraphim," which plays a number of times in the film, mainly at the end. And of course, you have Lisa Gerrard with her kind of that famous chanting, and kind of, I guess it's classified as wailing music. It's just kind of like that, the way that she sings it, which you hear in the one that always comes to mind is Gladiator. But there's something I love that Darabont says that the song plays as a, quote, requiem mass for the human race.
Ouch.
I think that describes that song and the way that it feels in the film, especially in that last sequence when they're driving through the mist and they see that massive, I don't know, it's like a giant elephant creature thing that's just kind of walking across the freeway, and it kind of looks at them and then kind of goes on its merry way before they all have to kill themselves. And it's just like, I don't know, that music works and it makes the ending. I think it builds to the ending and it in a perfect way. So I really enjoy it.
I do too. And the actual constraint they have in not using music for a lot of the film. There is, particularly in the opening, the first act, like there is that I couldn't help but be sort of taken by the feeling, that sort of sensory experience when you go out into a dense fog and it feels like the entire soundscape is dampened around you. That's what the movie feels like from the very first, scene of the storm in the movie, particularly in the black and white, to when the mist rolls in. There's no music. There's nothing but natural sound, or movie sound. And I thought it was really haunting and effective and lonely, and it just fit the whole vibe.
It definitely does. And I think that there's something really powerful about it, especially because I feel like in my head, the only time we really hear it is when they actually exit the store and go into the mist. Like, I feel like the first time I remember music is when they're going through the mist trying to get to the pharmacy.
Right. It takes a long time.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
that's
very
great
effective.
Constraint.
Yeah.
Okay.
Interestingly, the movie did well enough where in this, the Weinsteins were behind this. I know
we don't.
I know. It's one of those things. It's like, what do you say? They wanted to do a TV series, and they put together a 10-part episode or 10-part series designed on this story, and Spike TV picked up the pilot and they ran it for 10 episodes and then it was canceled. I haven't seen this, but now I'm really curious about this. I don't know how easy it is to track down these days, but they have 10 episodes out there. It is essentially the same story taking place in Maine about this mist that kind of takes over this area. We're just following more people. There's a group of people in a mall, in a church, in a hospital. And what it says is eventually people begin to see apparitions in the mist from their past, fears, or guilt that help or kill them, depending on how they react.
Wow.
That sounds like
sounds like exactly what I wanted.
Yeah, it totally does. And it sounds like by the time you get to the end of the 10th episode, it sounds like a really dark way to end that season. And it does make me wonder if, like, it almost feels like a dark ending, and it fits in the dark way that Frank Darabont ended this one, that if they weren't able to continue it, it still has a very dark ending.
That's amazing.
Yeah, really intriguing. I want to track that down now.
The Mist looks like it is available on Netflix.
Excellent. I'll have to check it out.
Oh, goodness. I just pressed play, and it opens with an extreme close-up of a spider.
See? It's designed for you. What's interesting is there were actually some games, not based on this so much, but based on the book, on the novella. Mindscape actually released an interactive fiction game in 1985 based on the novella. And then the Half-Life video game series also has creatures from other dimensions. They say that The Mist was one of their main influences for the plot. And they actually called they originally were going to call the first game in the series called Quiver, which was a reference to the Arrowhead Project. And actually the Silent Hill games were influenced also by this because of that whole mist that you have surrounding everything. So very interesting the way that this story has kind of created this influence in these different properties.
It's funny. I now feel like I know where the Half-Life Aperture Science handheld portal device, the portal gun from Half-Life and Portal, I know now where it came from. It came from Mist. Because inside of this is all the crazy creature. Of course it does. The circle is now complete.
Circle is now complete.
How to do at award season?
It was a horror film, and it was very specifically horror. So only in those realms did it get any nominations or wins. It had 6 wins total, 13 other nominations. At the Saturn Awards, the Academy of Science Fiction, Fantasy, and Horror, Marcia Harden won for Best Supporting Actress. The film itself lost the Best Horror Film to Sweeney Todd, The Demon Barber of Fleet Street, and Frank Darabont lost Best Director to Zack Snyder for 300. over at something called the Fright Meter Awards, which is interesting. Frank Darabont and Marcia Harden both won their awards. Sam Witwer was actually nominated for supporting actor, along with Nathan Gamble, who plays young Billy. Both of them lost to Jacob Kogan in Joshua. I haven't seen Joshua, but it makes me think that perhaps there was some, splitting of the votes between those two.
Mm-hmm.
At the Golden Schmoes, it was nominated for Most Underrated Movie of the Year, but lost to Grindhouse. Also lost to Grindhouse for Best Horror Film. And it lost the most memorable scene in a movie for its final sequence to Eastern Promises for its sauna scene.
Well, that was a good scene.
That was a good scene. I'm okay with that loss.
Yeah.
At the Rondo Hatton Classic Horror Awards, it lost Best Movie to Rob Zombie's Halloween. And the World Stunt Awards, it was nominated for Best Fire Stunt by Jason Gray when he gets lit on fire and stumbles around until people put him out. It lost to American Gangster for the scene where the stuntman wearing Nomex and fire gel sits in a chair as Denzel Washington drops a lighter on him. The stuntman is engulfed in flames for 20 seconds before he falls over and is then shot. That sounds like a pretty impressive stunt.
Yeah, that's good. I'm glad they
20 seconds.
I'm glad they got an award for that. That's
20 seconds and fuego. Yeah,
a long time.
That's a long time.
Okay. Well, did it do anything at the box office? Please tell me we have a positive APPFM.
Well, for Darabont's third and final King adaptation, he had a much smaller budget, which probably came because of the horror angle. He had $13 million, which is his lowest budget so far. That is $16.1 million in today's dollars. But he did walk into this knowing that the budget would be smaller. The movie opened November 21st, 2007, during the busy Thanksgiving season opposite Beowulf, Enchanted, Mr. Megorium's Wonder Emporium, This Christmas, Hitman, August Rush, Love in the Time of Cholera, I'm Not There, and Margot at the Wedding. Like I said, very busy holiday season. This movie opened in 12th place, then it did crack the top 10 for 3 weeks before completely dropping off the radar by its 5th week. It ended up earning $25.6 million domestically and $31.9 million internationally for a total gross of $71.3 million in today's dollars. With the lower budget, it did make its money back, and it certainly found its audience, ending up with an adjusted profit per finished minute of $437,000.
That makes me happy, Andy. Thank you.
Yeah.
I mean, you didn't cheat it just for me. That's real, right? You didn't just make that up.
It was real. Yes, it was real. It's frustrating. I know we're at the end of our series now, but, at this point in time, Frank Darabont has nothing else on his horizon that he's working on, and I would love to see him doing another Stephen King-related property. I think that pairing of those two together has always worked really well, and I just don't. He's done 4 films since he started, and I don't know. I don't know what the guy is working on at this point in time. I just know that I'm frustrated that his output is so light.
Agreed. This was a treat. Shall we take it to the mat?
Let's do it.
Head over to flickchart.com/thenextreel. You'll see all the movies we've talked about on this fair show. You swipe over in your show notes, tap the word Flickchart. It should take you straight to the Mist in the Flickchart database, where you can add it to your list and see how it stacks up against ours.
First up, we have The Mist or Underworld.
The Mist.
The Mist for me. The Mist or Fargo.
Oh, man.
That is quite the block.
It's Fargo.
It's Fargo. Yeah. The Mist or Interstellar.
Interstellar.
I'm going to go with The Mist.
You are? Oh, I'm very surprised and pleased to hear that. We still need to play it out, but I'm really happy with that.
That's right. All right, here we go. One,
2,
3.
Paper.
Rock. Oh, paper takes it. Interstellar wins.
I'm disappointed that I won.
Yeah, you should
I don't think I was supposed to win.
The Mist or 28 Days Later.
28 Days Later.
I'll say The Mist.
Okay.
Here we go. 1, 2, 3.
Rock.
Paper. The Mist takes it on that one. The Mist or The Prestige?
The Prestige.
I'm The Mist, I think. I'm going to say The Mist.
Okay.
All right, here we go. 1,
2,
3.
Scissors.
Paper. Well, Scissors takes it. The Prestige, I know. The Mist or Marathon Man?
Is it safe? I think it's Marathon Man.
I'll go with Marathon Man.
All right.
Dustin Hoffman may have been able to outrun the creatures if he were running through the mist.
True.
Yeah.
But there's a universe out there in the multiverse, Andy, where Dustin Hoffman is actually in The Mist, and he's in the grocery store, and I'd like to see that movie too.
Maybe he is the creature they're all running from. Dustin
came
Hoffman
through the
with
portal.
tentacles.
That's his story. It's Dustin Hoffman as the spider.
Yep. The Mist or the diving bell and the butterfly?
I'm going to go with The Mist. There's just, Diving Bell, I've seen it now twice. Once, and then once for the show. I'm not watching that movie again. It's too much.
Yeah,
it's great.
a tough film.
It is a great film. I'm never watching that movie again.
I'll say The Mist. The Mist or In the Mood for Love?
Oh.
I'm going to say In the Mood for Love. Yeah, it is.
Okay.
The Mist or Hero?
I think The Mist.
I'll say The Mist. A little wishy-washy on that one, but it's only one spot above. In spot 217 out of 508 films on our chart. That puts it at a 57%. Kind of low, if you ask me.
Man, I did not have the same challenges when ranking it on my own list. I did not hit anything that was questionable to me in my picks. How did it do on yours?
Yeah, it was. It ranked better on my own chart. Landed in spot 780 out of 4630, which is about an 83%.
83%. I beat you, Andy. 216 out of 1501. It's an 86%. If I were to go by the algorithm over at letterboxd.com/thenextreel, this should be a 4.5 star film. I know it's a 4 with a heart. I don't know if it's that full 4.5. I did have some problems with the whole sort of time and place, staging, blocking. I don't know. Where'd you go?
Yeah, I fluctuate on this one. I feel like I'm at a 4 star, but I really enjoy this film. So I'm totally okay giving it 4 stars and just knowing that I still love it. So that's where I'm sitting with it.
All right. I'm comfortable with that too. 4 stars and a heart. A big, beating, juicy, Lovecraftian heart with tentacles. This was a terrific film. I had a great time with it. And I can't wait this is one of those that I can't wait to show people who haven't seen it.
Yeah, truly.
What a fun movie. So great film. Now, we're done with King Darabont. That's it. That's all we've got for this little trio of films. Where do we go from here?
Yeah, it was again, he hasn't done much. So that's where we sit with Frank Darabont. We're going to be shifting gears now, totally different types of stories. We're going to be looking at Lynn Shelton, who tragically died at age 54 in 2020. And just very sad from acute myeloid leukemia. And but she had a chance. She had been acting, directing, doing a number of different things. We're looking specifically at a series of her films in her director filmography, which she started in 2006. But we're going to be starting with Hump Day from 2009. We're going to be looking at Your Sister's Sister, Laggies, Outside In, and ending with Sort of Trust, her final film.
This is going to be very, very new to me.
Yeah, me too. I've heard the name a lot. She's one of those people who really started popping up in kind of the mumblecore crowds and in those different stories. And so I knew of her. I just hadn't seen any of her work yet. And so this will be a treat. I'm looking forward to watching all of these films, all of which will be new to me.
When the movie ends,
our conversation begins.
Letterboxd giveth, Andrew.
As Letterboxd always doeth.
All right. We went high, so I went low, and mine's really, really short. And so I just want to start because I think it's respective of some of the other low reviews. It's from Nevin Morgan, who's in my Letterboxd network. Nevin, hello. Pretty thin stuff, says Nevin. A Twilight Zone episode stretched to 2 hours and totally still feels like TV. Also, you don't get to show a parent shooting their child unless you're pretty sure your movie is a masterpiece. This one definitely isn't.
Ouch.
I know. Ouch.
Oh, wow.
I see the point. I see the point. I just like the movie better than you did. That's fine.
Apparently, yeah.
What do you got?
I didn't bother going high or low. I just found this one, which I really enjoy. It's by Matt Lynch, who gave it 3.5 stars and a heart. and had this to say with it. Hell with this. I'm going to Whole Foods. I don't give a f*** how expensive it is.
Oh, that's awesome.
Thank you, Matt.
That is fantastic.
I hate to tell you, Matt, but Mrs. Carmody, she probably is also shopping at Whole Foods.
She's at Whole Foods.
watch
And
out.
ever since Amazon, the prices are really, don't worry about it. You're going to get eaten by the mist in any store you go to anymore. Thanks, Letterboxd. It's hard to believe we have been having in-depth weekly conversations about movies since 2011.
You're telling me producing this show week after week is so much fun, but it does require a lot of work behind the scenes. If you'd like to help support our efforts, one easy way is by using our Originals page when shopping for books and movies that we've covered.
Your purchase is made through our links. Give us a small commission at no extra cost to you and allow us to keep having these great discussions.
We covered a lot of great movies that were adapted from other material in Season 10.
Our Originals page at thenextreel.com/originals is where listeners can purchase the source material behind all our adapted film discussions. It helps support the show at no extra cost when you buy through our links.
In our foreign language Best Picture nominees series, we looked at several adaptations, including Z, The Postman Il Postino, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, and Letters from Iwo Jima.
We hit the high seas with In the Heart of the Sea from Nathaniel Philbrick's nonfiction book for our Aquatic Killers series.
Definitely a weaker entry in that series.
I bet the book is better.
Oh, me too.
Member bonus episodes featured adaptations like Gone Girl, The Russia House, Ivanhoe, The Hot Rock, The Big Heat, and Naked Lunch.
Oliver Stone brought not just original stories, but also adaptations like Conan the Barbarian, Scarface, Year of the Dragon, 8 Million Ways to Die, Talk Radio, and Born on the 4th of July.
Mary Herron's disturbingly insightful American Psycho was adapted from the Bret Easton Ellis book.
You like Huey Lewis in the News?
Oh my God, it even has a watermark.
And of course, more Stephen King with The Mist, The Green Mile, and The Shawshank Redemption for our King a la Darabont series.
Find links to all of these books and more adapted films on our Originals page. That's thenextreel.com/originals. Every purchase supports our show.
Get the full list of books that we've talked about and start your next read today at thenextreel.com/originals.